If you played or been in the general vicinity of Earth in the past week, you might have picked up on the release of Victoria 3. And if you have, chances are you've heard a fair bit of criticism related to the game's warfare and battle systems. Some people love it, others hate it, but I'm here to tell you exactly why feelings are so strong, why the battle system is so messed up at the moment, why I love warfare despite the blemishes, and even how we can fix it right now. Alright, so what is so controversial about Victoria 3's warfare? Throughout virtually every non-Hearts of Iron Paradox game, warfare has been about recruiting units, seeing those units stack on the map, and being able to physically move those units and armies around, now often represented by a soldier, on the map. For all the glory of Paradox maps and menus, those units' animations gave the games an added sense of movement, of interaction. And of course there were tactics involved here as well. You always had to be careful in which terrain you were fighting, as crossing a river to attack your enemy gave you a horrible negative modifier. And the same goes for being attacked while sieging an enemy city, or attacking an enemy after a naval landing. You often even had to mix and match units for the optimal composition, and sometimes armies were given special legacy modifiers which made them all the more special and unique. Some of the most fun parts of Crusader Kings dealt with reaching those military upgrades, that feeling of going from just a few hundred soldiers to several thousand, and to pick and choose the units your army consists of. However, there were downsides as well. Armies in Paradox games rarely just evaporated after a loss, and would often retreat very long distances. In certain games especially, this meant that you as the player had to go on a tedious quest to hunt this army down. And since it demands a certain amount of days to make it from province to province, chances were the enemy army would try to avoid meeting your army if it was certain of losing. In many instances, this could lead to a never-ending chase situation, and coupled with the need to move your army from siege to siege, which would take months and was arguably little more than busy work, it could lead to situations where you simply forgot you had an army in a certain province. The same went for navies, and I can't tell you how many times I lost a navy due to attrition simply because I forgot it on the ocean somewhere. Victoria 3 attempts to change all of this, and I don't think anyone will deny that it doesn't. Victoria 3 takes a page out of the Book of Hearts of Iron, and instead of having battles fought player manually on a province-to-province basis, the game's battle now takes place solely on the front line, even though the armies fight state by state as well. As you might notice though, there are no actual armies here. That's because armies are now purely menu-based, defined as battalions, and assigned to generals stationed in various parts of your country. And like in EU4, upgrading your units is now a matter of technology, and it's as simple as changing their production methods. New units no longer land on the map, but they're added to the army pool and available generals. They're only deployed once you've mobilized them during war, when they can be ordered to attack and defend a state. But even then, the tangibility of the armies are fleeting at best. They're not really reflected by your actions, as they're mostly represented by simple cannon fire. There's further nothing you can do to change outcomes here, as the battles are determined by various modifiers, the generals, caliber of troops, and random events during the battles. However, this is arguably where the main issues arise. You see, I love the warfare system itself. I find it fun to prepare my armies before battle, having to actually supply them with weapons and ammunition, and watch as the battles pop up on my front line. But the battles themselves are at the moment nonsensical, and it's because of how they're actually determined. You'd think that with better armies and the more men, that any battle could and should theoretically be won. But that's actually not how the game works at the moment. So let me tell you what's wrong here. Right now, and contrary to prior logic, while your entire army can be stationed at the front, looking at the entire army of the enemy, far from every soldier is fighting at once. Instead, battles are more or less randomly calculated to take place in a province along the front line, and this battle will involve only a fraction of the larger army. The logic is that entire fronts do not fight at once and get obliterated, but it doesn't really work well at the moment. The reasons here are many. First, the defender almost always gets a number advantage, despite having a smaller army. As only one battle is taking place at any time, numbers don't seem to matter much, as every battle seems to become a battle of Thermopylae with 300 Spartans fending off 1,000,000 Persians, and winning. Second, the number of units in each battle seem to fluctuate almost randomly, so even though you had 200 units on the front, sometimes battles will be fought between 3 and 4 units, other times it's between 15 and 20, but never is it fought between even 50 and 60, and it comes down to the small combat width here. Further, somehow, The game gives a fighting advantage to lower level units versus higher tech ones, and it even considers conscripted battalions better than the regulars, which makes absolutely no sense. This leads to situations where you, as a state with more and better units, lose battle after battle because the modifiers, which do not make sense, are stacked against you. For what reason it works like this, I have no idea. And even though I love the warfare system then, the battles themselves are currently extremely broken, and it's almost a random toss of the dice whether a much better army is going to win or not. Luckily, there are ways we can easily get around this, and the best way of doing so is to download a mod from the Steam Workshop. There are a few options out there, but the arguably most comprehensive is currently the mod called Best War. This mod attempts to fix the mistakes and faults of the current system as much as possible, and touches upon all of the aforementioned errors. The mod increases battlefield width, meaning more units are able to fight at the same time in the same province, meaning the army with more men has an advantage based on that, although it's still also determined by other factors like infrastructure and terrain. In the same vein, the number of units in any single battle will vary less, although the defender will continue to have a slight advantage here. Equally important, units with better weapons and technology actually have a proper advantage now, giving smaller nations, but more modernized and industrialized, a unique advantage over larger, less modernized ones. And finally, professional regular battalions are actually better and more capable than conscripted, non-trained soldiers, which means professional armies finally have at least a quality advantage, even though they might not have a quantity one. In other words, this mod will make your wars and battles much more predictable and in line with what you think might happen based on how you've run your country and modernized your army. And the same goes for other nations, of course. Now the highly professional Prussians have a chance to stand up against the numerically superior Russians, and even the Ottomans, at least if they manage to modernize in time, will have a much more fair time fighting the Egyptians. I have to admit I have no idea why the system ended up being so broken or at least nonsensical, as Paradox must have understood how important warfare is to players. Obviously, these games are much more than just warfare, but it's still an essential part of the game in every way, and the least they could do was have it work in a functional and understandable way that makes sense. Even though the Best War mod is a quick fix, I really hope and think Paradox is determined to fix this mess in due time, and hopefully much sooner than later. Thank you so much for watching. I love the warfare system even though I find it needs more cool animations and more player tactical interaction, and the battles certainly need to be tweaked. But what do you think? Do you enjoy the more hands-off approach, or do you miss the old style battles? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, I really hope you leave a like, a comment, subscribe to the channel, and consider becoming a YouTube member or a patron. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!